You're listening to Story Struck. I'm Rachel, a writer and editor.
And I'm Neno, an intuitive book coach and writer. Welcome to our curious community where we dive into everything books and writing. Let's get into the story.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Story Struck Podcast. A couple weeks ago, we got a little dark, and today we're getting a little spicy, and we're going to talk about romance, spice, and everything nice or naughty.
It's spicy.
Oh, my goodness. So this topic kind of came into fruition this weekend as I was talking to Neno about the book that I'm writing, and we just went off on a tangent for a couple hours at least total of voice memos back and forth to each other about spice level in books, our thoughts and feelings of what we like, things we've noticed, and we're like, okay, we've talked for hours on this topic. It needs to be a podcast episode.
Yeah, maybe we should record this, because that's how the podcast kind of came to be. We literally just have these conversations about books and stories and things like that, and we're like, we could totally have made this a podcast episode. And eventually we just made a podcast so we could just make them episodes. So here we are. Okay, so full disclosure, Rachel and I are not spicy girlies. As a whole, I think that we would rather it be in the what are the chili peppers? 1 to 2 chili peppers.
Yeah,
and
I'll dabble
still
into
listen.
a 3 on occasion, but I feel like that's my cap.
Yeah. And I've recently started listening to some straight romantasy that has gotten spicier. And generally, before I was like, nah, if it's a straight romantasy, I'm not interested. And I wasn't even giving it a shot because I'm not about hearing about the straight sex. And so I'm like, listen, I lived that life. I don't want to go back. But in listening to it, I've actually had kind of a healing moment going through this journey of listening to some straight romantasy and even enjoying some of the spicier scenes between a straight couple. I had to figure out my way around that, but I did figure it out eventually. And then realizing being more open to reading these books, I've come across some books that I really, really like, some series that I really, really like that are more of that straight romantasy style. Spark of the Everflame is one of them that we were talking about in our little brain dump, hours long brain dump about it, because that is a comp title for Rachel's book. So if you like that book, stay tuned for Rachel's because it's going to be equally as epic. But I am obsessed with that book series. I love it. I'm like, oh, this is so good. Granted, the spice level is 1 chili pepper. It's not super, super spicy. But I recently read one that is very spicy, and I had to fast forward through 5, not even fast forward, I just skipped 5 chapters because I disliked the spice in it so much, but I really liked the story, but the spice took away from the story so much for me. So we had this whole conversation. So that is me in spice. Rachel, what is you in spice?
Yes. So I'm kind of along similar lens. So I started reading romance decades ago because I'm an old fogey. Even if I don't look like it, I'm an old fogey. So I was reading Harlequin romance novels back in the day where you got a postcard in the mail and you would check off I want this box of books this month, and they would send you 1 box free. And then you could I did that probably for every single imprint they had. And then I had all these books from their sweet romance line to their romantic suspense line. So I read kind of a bunch of gamuts of that, and they've added in spicier stuff now than they used to have back in the day. So that's kind of where I got my start with spice and romance. And now I love to read romantasy, fantasy with romance, all the little things, and we'll kind of chat a little bit about that as well. But for myself, I feel that I enjoy more of the yearning than the actual on the page getting down.
Yeah.
So I kind of let's go. Yeah, I'm dude, I don't want to be hearing about your man bits. That is not sexy to me at all. So I think for me it's the graphic descriptions of things. So I am bisexual. So it's I enjoy that. I haven't really seen a lot of sapphic romance. So I'm excited to kind of read that and see how that is done
I've got a book
differently. So that's
rack.
definitely something for us to chat about too.
Yeah.
Because I'm more familiar with just standard man and woman stick it in, like, that's the kind of romance stuff that they do, right?
Man, woman, stick it
Man,
in.
woman, stick it in, let's go.
Girl, that's kinda how it goes, isn't it? In this,
But it's
like,
like in real life,
world.
and I'm like, "No, I'm
Yeah.
done with that shit." Like, I don't wanna no. So, I want to have that, like, yearning kind of feeling, like, for me, like, I feel like romance-wise, not human rights kind of life I wanna live-wise, but romance-wise, I feel like I would've fit better in, like, the Regency era or, like, something like that, where it's, like, just, like, a little brush on your hand, it's like, "I'm going to swoon." You know, like, there's forbidden glances, I show you my ankle and you're like, "Ooh," you know,
Yeah.
like, that kind of stuff, like, it's that, it's
The
not
Jane
all about the
Austen level
touchy-feely.
of
Not
romance.
yeah, like, you can just
Mhm.
feel the yearn and you have that relationship develop outside of physical intimacy, and also, maybe that's a little bit of my autism, I don't like to be touched a lot, and so I wonder if that also impacts, like, how spicy I like it because 'cause I'm like, "No, that's too much touching." So who knows? Maybe
That would
those
be
part of
so
it too.
interesting to research. We should put a pin in that and research that because I
Yes.
wonder how different neurospice reacts to different levels of spice. Because we all have our
Yeah.
little hyperfixations, right? As
Mhm.
us neurospicy people and stuff. But I
It
wonder,
could be,
yeah.
like, maybe it's why, because I like, hard touch, like, I don't know, no, like, it makes me feel trapped, but, like, a light touch I like, so that's maybe why I like the things that
Hmm.
are more yearning, like, I'm not, like, pawing you all over the place. So, I kind of enjoy that softer side, and I don't mind if
Hmm.
there is a little bit on the page. I think that's totally fine, and it's, building to something, but I don't need those for myself the very graphic descriptions, and we're getting very creative with euphemisms for body parts and things, and I'm like, "Okay, like, we can just, like, fade to black now, and I know you did it,"
Yeah.
and then, like, we come back, and then we get to have that, like, aftercare moment, that intimacy that they're having afterwards and,
Hmm.
kind of exploring the emotions and things that that brought up for them, so I feel like that's kinda the zone that I like, and so we can kind of explore, like, the different levels of it. So, the chili peppers are, like, one rating system, and for me, when I started hearing about that, I was a little bit confused because I'm used to kind of, like, the older style system, which would be more like how Harlequin used to describe them back in the day. So, maybe we can kind of equate these to a chili pepper
Yeah, I'm
and see.
actually like I think I don't know like how many scenes or how graphic the scenes are equate to the chili pepper system. I just know I'm on the lower range.
Yes, yes, yeah, so this'll kinda, like, run the gamut, so if you're
Mhm.
familiar with peppers, these are some other words you could use for your peppers. So the first one is called a clean romance, and this might also be called that's a different one. So clean romance is basically it's very PG, so you might just have, like, hand-holding, maybe a little bit of a kiss,
I think
uh,
cozies tend to
cozy
lean in this. I've
yes.
only read one cozy that actually had a full-on sex scene in it, and I was just like, "Whoa, wait a second, this is a
Yeah.
cozy. What is this? What is happening?"
Yeah, you are
Took me
not
by
going to
surprise.
get any of that. They may have cuddling, types of
Mhm.
things like that, but
There's like one or two
there's no
kisses. Yeah.
nudity,
Mhm.
and there's not really, like, a lot of sexual desires. Like, there might be a little
Mhm.
bit of that yearning kind of a little thing. I feel like this is what we used to have a lot in YA novels, and I feel like YA novels have gotten spicier.
Especially since they started making the female main characters like 18, 19, so they could be,
Yes.
like, more graphic,
Yeah, then
I
it's
think,
not
with
like we're
them.
in this creepy territory of, like, statutory rape and, like,
Yeah.
child, like, talking about like, I'm like, "No, I don't wanna
Yeah.
be an adult reading about these 2 16-year-olds getting it on because that feels a little ick in my mid-40s."
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, and I think, like, we do need, because teens are sexually active,
Yeah.
so, they deserve to have their experiences reflected in them for them in a fantasy
Mhm.
world, especially for those of us who, maybe are, like, exploring our sexuality
Yes.
and live in places where that's not safe as some of us experienced. So, I think those are really, really important. I guess, like, they just are not for everybody.
Yes. Well, I think that would probably be your, like, 0 to 1, like, maybe not even a 1. That's, like, I think before the scale starts of pepper. Right.
Mhm.
And then I think maybe our one chili pepper might be kind of close to this, which is what it's called a sweet romance. And sweet romance is kind of like if you think of like lighthearted rom-coms,
Mm.
that is kind of the sweetness, and maybe you might get some of this in, like, a cozy mystery. I've seen this in there too, even though, like, romance plot lines are not, like, a main plot line, sometimes they do have, like, the love interest and stuff, and they might, within the series, have little romantic element, but these aren't, like, hot getting it on, it's, like, kind of like a fade to black moment, so we're, like, kinda teetering between, like, a PG and a PG-13 kind of in this, like, sweet realm, and so that's kind of what the
And I can see
sweet
that for
romance
a
is. Lots
lot
of
of
touches, heavy kissing, and
yeah, I can see that for a lot of the cozies where it
mm,
goes from, like, clean to sweet to maybe just an itty bitty bitty bit, you know? Because even in that one cozy that I read, like, it wasn't super graphic, and it was not even a whole chapter's worth. It was a piece of the chapter and stuff,
yeah.
so it just was surprising because to be like, "Oh, and she took her top off," and I was just like, "Oh, there we're talking about titties, that's okay with me," but, like, I just wasn't expecting it.
So,
So, yeah.
yes. So I think that could be maybe your 1 to 2 depending on how much you have going on with it, and then we kind of have maybe a 2 to 3 range would probably be this next one, and this one I enjoy this. So I enjoy the clean is nice. If I want some romance though, I'm probably looking for a sweet romance or the one we're gonna do now, which is a sensual romance. So sensual, it makes me think of the senses, right? And in this one, they are going to have sex. The characters have sex. However, it's more emotional sex than the physical sex. There's very little description. We're going to be kind of be told about hands exploring the body versus like thrusting and grinding and like all those bits and bobs, right? This softer, more sensual feel of that sexual experience that they're having. You're not going to have as many like innuendos about things. You're going to kind of have more, that deep eye contact, those very intimate internal emotional moments is kind of more about the sex, but it does occur on the page versus just completely fading to black. But eventually it may fade to black, or you may get a completion and, just in a softer, sensual, less graphic, goodness ways.
Yeah.
So, like, things like this, I feel like you would see this and if you like romantic suspense and you read things from Harlequin that are, like, geared as romantic suspense, things like that, you'll get this. So, Heather Graham is a romance writer that I like, and she does a lot of stuff with Harlequin. She has, like, the Crew of Hunters series, which has, I don't know, like, 20-something in the series now, and it has paranormal elements in it. So, this would be along the lines of what her books are. And I guess I'll give her 'cause she's kind of a pretty well-known one, and maybe Nora Roberts, I'm thinking might also be in this realm as well.
I have no idea because
Okay, yeah, I'm like, yeah. So,
I'm like, "Sure, sounds good." I don't
sure,
know.
okay.
I don't know any of their stories.
So, would
My
you
dive into romances is very limited in, like, the specifically romance
yeah.
space and a bit in actually the romantasy space, but
So, we were talking about the one comp title for my book.
Mhm.
Do you think that falls into this category, or have
Yeah.
we not hit the spice level of it yet?
No, I think Spark of the Everflame could be under that category,
Okay,
because and even maybe One Dark Window, that one might be a little bit more, but if it's like a range, because there's a lot of the yearning and desire in Spark of
mhm,
the Everflame, but I am not recalling a full-blown scene in book 1 or book 2. Because
yes.
I haven't read book 3 yet, so if you've read book 3, don't spoil it for me. I know it's old. I know it's been out there for a minute. But so yeah. So I'm thinking that this is probably in that realm, and maybe this one to maybe the next one being where like One Dark Window might be,
Okay,
because at least for that specific book with the One Dark Window, because I haven't read the second book yet, with their scene where it was a bit more graphic, but it was a final release of tension where there's been all
okay.
this yearning, all this desire, all these like sensual feelings, right? Where you having the full sensory experience. They're describing the sensory experience of the characters and stuff, and then you finally get that release.
Yeah. All right. So now we have 2 more categories left. So we're getting steamy now because the next category is a steamy romance. romance, which isn't the highest culmination we're getting to yet. We're building to the climax here, okay? So we have our steamy romance. This one is going to have explicit sex scenes in it. And this one, the language is going to be very specific. We're going to talk about cocks and breasts and all the bits and bobs. Like, they're not afraid to drop the
Mhm.
language here, where in the sensual romance, we may have used maybe a little bit more euphemisms than like just shooting out the word cock. You know, it's not like bam, we're slamming it in your face. It's a little softer. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, this one here, you're going to get that you're going to have a lot of details and be able to visualize exactly what's happening on the page, but we're not over the top details,
Mm.
right? Like,
And I'm wondering, like, where it lands, where there's the amount of scenes,
mm,
right? To where a
mhm.
steamy maybe has 2 or 3 sexual scenes, whereas the next level might have 5.
Yeah, and that's an
'Cause let me
interesting
tell
thing to
you,
think
what I
about.
just read had 5, and so
Oh,
it's like steamy plus, so whatever the
ooh,
next one is, I think that's what it is.
it might end up being, it might be there. It might be in between. Like, for me, when I think of the steam factor, I'm thinking, number one, how we're talking in terms of how it's shown or not shown on the page. But also, like you said, the frequency of it. And I think that's something we'll chat about as well, of like how it fits within the narrative. And so then we're kind of moving away from where we're boning here in the steamy to now we're in the erotic romance category. And that is like the tippity top spiciest baby you can get. And this one, they expect to like totally see everything that's going on the page.
Mm. They
So
want details on the bite
they want
marks and
detail.
the they're like, "Where are your bicuspids on this
Y-
person's arm?"
And then this one, I feel it does have a little bit of a negative connotation. So
Mm.
you might hear of like the steamy romance we just talked about being spicy. And then when we hear stories that are in the erotic romance category might be labeled as smut.
Mm.
So if
Mhm.
you hear people say that, and I
Right,
will
like
say
like
that
comparing ACOTAR to fairy smut.
yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they may call this smut, and then we're not saying that it's bad and it's smutty. Like, I think that what's interesting is if we look societally,
Mhm.
romance is for women. And if a man is consuming porn, they're not like dissing whatever he's doing, but all of a sudden a woman wants to read something and it's
Mhm.
like, you're reading smut and that's
Right, because
trash, or
purity
you're right
culture.
smut. Ew. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cause,
Purity
you know,
culture is a problem, especially for us socialized as female.
yes. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with erotic romance. And if that's your jam, then that is all good. I think as writers, though, we need to make it very clear what spice level and what we have in our books. Because same thing, I found series and this author, she has, I think, yeah, she writes so many. She's probably got like 4 or 5 different things in this series out, and they're like vampire clans and like it does all this stuff. I love her books. Like, I'm like, I cannot read enough of her books, but they are like they're like teetering on the like erotic side. Like, I love the storyline, but anytime we get
Mhm.
to this, like the sex scenes, I literally have to skip because they are pages and pages and pages long and they are incredibly graphic. And I can't
Yeah.
do that. But I read it still for the story and I just skip over that. And I'm like, I lost absolutely nothing from not reading that scene. But for someone else who likes it, then they're like double dipping excited because they have the story they love and they have the level of hot steaminess that they are craving. But it's just not my jam, but I still enjoy the story. I was a little shocked going in because I didn't realize when I first started reading her books like how spicy it was. But it was also my first foray into reading a book that was a why choose, where she actually ends up, it's a reverse harem. And
Oh.
so she ends up with 3 guys, and all 3 of them are hers.
Oh.
And so I really enjoyed the shift in power dynamics of that. And I thought that
Mm.
was so cool, and because it was her choice to choose all of these men, and she told them straight up, "I don't want one of you, I want all of you, so either you're okay with it or you're not having me." And,
Mm.
like, seeing how they work the dynamics out with that, and it was just very fascinating, so I really enjoyed that. Maybe I shoulda known going in with that, but I'd never read anything like that before,
Yeah.
and it was very empowering, and I was like, "Damn, I like that."
And that kinda leads us into, like, the next,
Yes.
like,
Yeah, so
point.
let's kinda chat
However, I
about
did
that.
wanna point out I just looked really quick on my Fable at, like, the books that I read and stuff like that, and the cozy that I would be like, "Oh, yeah, this is clean," and stuff like that, no spice listing whatsoever. Like, it's not even, like, on the category. It's, like, cute,
Interesting.
cozy romance, the How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days, right? They're sleeping next to each other, they love each other, they kiss, like, that's about it. Right? The Spark of the Everflame, at least for the 2 books that I read, those are some spice and have 1 chili pepper.
Okay.
And then the very very graphic ones that I just finished, Quicksilver and Brimstone, which I really liked the storyline of, but I could not handle the sex scenes of, and I had to fast forward through them, skip them completely. That one is spice with a flame emoji. It's not
Ooh, with it.
even chili peppers. That's a flame
It's
emoji.
flaming
Granted,
hot.
yeah, this one is Fable, so I don't know how BookTok might do it differently,
Mhm.
how Goodreads might do it differently. This is on Fable because I like this app. Let's see, Song of Achilles has some spice, which I would consider that one more spice than Spark of the Everflame because there was more innuendo of things and stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I think actually your description, your like category system that you just gave us, I think that that one is a lot more clear than the chili pepper system that I see on this app at least.
Yeah, and
To
that's the
know what
trouble
I
with it.
like because, like,
Yeah.
I was fine with Spark of Achilles Spice because it was between 2 men, and so that didn't bother me. But, I go to Quicksilver and I'm like, "Oh god, I cannot with all the." But then I read Shield of Sparrows, which is straight, and I'm, like, all about it and stuff, and turns out my pathway to being okay with reading straight sex is I have to envision being the man, and as a gender fluid person, I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable in that. So I have because I can't help but envision being in the story. And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a neurodivergent thing or if that's an everybody thing or what, but I can't help but envision being in the story, like being the
Yes.
character's perspectives in the story. And so envisioning myself as the man in the situation worked, but I could not do it in Quicksilver because I just could not relate to the male main character at all. And I relate to male characters more than I do female characters. I was actually thinking about that
Interesting.
today. I don't know why. I'm like thinking about like, oh, what characters do you identify with? And I was telling my friends about this shadow work journal that I did and how, like I always saw myself as a Bilbo Baggins, but now that I've done some healing work and stuff like that, I see myself as more of an Aragorn in that world. And granted, I'm looking at Lord of the Rings. There's 2 women, like, and stuff like that. But like even if I look broader, I'm like, okay, in all of the books that I've read, I read a lot of books with female main characters who are really powerful and are strong and have swords and like
Mm,
I cannot say that I'm like, I really identify with this character. I'm like, crap, why am I always relating to the dudes? I don't know. It was my whole little like, we'll explore that later. But
real quick before we move from that to into
yeah.
what we were gonna talk about, I forgot to mention that with erotic romance, so typically in the other romance, our little steamy categories we've gone through here, there's love developing between the characters. There's an emotional
Mm,
connection and there's love. But in, erotica, they don't necessarily have to have that love, that erotic romance.
mm.
They can have love, or they can just be like, "We're gonna have loads of wild sex, and maybe we'll fall in love along the way." But, like, I'm cool with just kinda, like, having you make me happy, you know?
Yeah.
So, there's another kind of little difference there. You do still want to have, like, that happily ever after at the end, no matter what type of book you're writing,
Mhm.
but that intense, like, love development doesn't necessarily have to be part of the developing sex scenes within that erotic romance. It may, but it's not required. Where
Yeah,
the
I
other
think
ones, you have that romance element, and that's, like, kinda drawing them together to have
mhm.
those moments.
I think that the steamy is where we're seeing a lot, in particular in the romantasy space.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing
Yeah.
a lot more in that steamy category and stuff. And, you know, a lot of times they'll call that smut, or, you know, like that it's really spicy and stuff like that. But there's always that deep, at least all of the ones that I see, like there's always a deep love. And
Yes.
that is because people like spice for reasons. And I took notes. I did research this
Woo!
time.
I was so proud when we got on this call and she's like, "I have notes." I'm like,
I'm
"Well,
like, I'm gonna channel some of Rachel's Virgo energy and I'm gonna research something before the podcast, and I have notes this time.
oh yeah, I got you all excited sending you my 8 pages of my outline for my thing
Yeah,
yesterday."
yeah, you were like sending me Virgo energy with like, this is my chapter. Here's 8 pages of notes about it.
I haven't written it yet. I just wrote my beats out, and you're like, "What the shit, Rachel? Like, you just wrote 8 pages." And I'm like, "But it's not. It's just bullet points. I know what's going in there. I just didn't write it yet."
Yeah. The Virgo energy over there is wild. But so everyone likes spice, or everyone who likes spice, like there's reasons behind it. And I know for me as a queer person, you know, the aspect of exploring desire in a safe way is a huge piece of why people like spice in their books. Because as somebody who socialized as female, you don't always have the safety in intimacy. Even when it's somebody that you like and trust, there's not always that full sense of safety. So, having a book that explores different things that you're wanting to see, wanting to experience, it gives you a safe container to feel those feelings and see if that's something that you want to explore in the real life, or if you want to just live vicariously through this character because you don't have a person that you feel safe with or whatnot, or you're not in a space where you can explore these things in a safe way. Like if you were in certain places in the world and you are sapphic or gay or anything like that, it's not always safe to explore that side of you where you are. So sometimes these stories can really give you that freedom to explore vicariously. So safe exploration of desire was a really, really big factor in why spice in books is so popular. The other aspect of the safe exploration of desire is the guarantee of a happy ending. Like that aspect right there, like I know that even if things go down, even if they break up, like it's probably going to be fine in the end, because statistically, you're right. You know, it is probably going to be fine in the end. They are probably going to end up together in the end, no matter the genre you're in. You know, like you've got a good chance that things are going to be all right. One comes to mind that's not, and I'm not going to spoil anything, and I'm not going
Ooh.
to say anything, but I'll tell you later when we're not on the podcast, so I don't spoil anything
Ooh,
about my
okay.
book recommendation for you to read something that has an unexpected ending.
Awesome.
Gotta love a good plot twist. Anyways, so the other thing, talking about, especially in that steamy realm where we're having the more deep intimacy, the romance, the love, and the desire, I think that this is one of the aspects of why spice in a fantasy book, in a romantasy book, is so loved right now, because of this deepening emotional connection between the
Yes.
two characters. Because what we see in the fantasy world that we're in is a male main character who reveres the female main character. He worships her, you know, like in Quicksilver that I just finished not long ago. Like he literally said in the beginning of one of the scenes, you know, she's like, I've been sweating all day, like, no, don't go down there. And he's like, shut up, don't finish that sentence. I want to taste you, not soap, not perfume, you. And I'm like,
Ooh, wow, okay.
got it. Like, how often in intimate moments do we feel insecure
Mhm.
about smell, taste, like what's going on? I don't know, right? And so having that reverence from the male main character for the female main character, it like, my God, this is what I want in life kind of feeling, right? It brings about that feeling in you of like, I want to be like, what's that song? The Hozier song, Take Me to Church?
Yeah.
Like how he speaks about his partner in that song, like just like I want to worship at your altar and stuff,
Yes.
like that is what we're getting in a lot of these steamy romantasies, is where the male main character is just worshiping. And like, by the way, in sapphic stories, that's always in there. So if you like that, I mean, like, I think in the sapphic space in general, like we women who love women love women, you
Yeah.
know, like it's usually something that's a little bit more intense. Whereas in our patriarchal world that we live in the real world, we get very much of that objectification. And it's more of this energy of like, she's hot, I'd fuck her. And then you start to kind of feel like a glorified blow up doll sometimes. And it takes a lot of that deep connection out of it, right? And so much of sex, especially for those of us with women brains, that sounds weird, but especially for us who are socialized as female or who identify as female, right? A lot of the aspect of the romance of the thing that makes sex worth having is the mental and emotional connection, is like all of that space. What is it? Dr. Jen Gunter always talks about how a woman's like turn on button is her brain or something,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
along those
Mhm.
lines. Like it's
Yeah,
so
you gotta turn
important.
me on here first before anything else is gonna work.
Exactly. And that idea of being desired so intently and so wholly and honestly is one of the big draws to a steamy romantasy. Also, fun fact, when you read those steamy scenes, they trigger the release of dopamine and oxytocin, which I thought was really cool because you're not actually physically there.
Yeah, that is so neat. I love that. And like going back to what you were saying about that scene in Quicksilver, like even though that like description, I don't know what happened afterwards, how descriptive it was, but even like the statement like that, I feel like that could be very empowering for a woman,
Mm,
right? Because we are then feeling more comfortable about our bodies. Cause like you said, like we always worry about all those different elements, like smell, taste, like all these things. And that can make you very self conscious. And then to have a moment like that, it's like, wow, you know, there's a moment I wish somebody made me feel that way or said that
yeah.
to me. And like that would be like a huge moment, build that trust and things through them. And like I feel like that's how I felt with that book I didn't know what I was getting into with the reverse harem, where I was like, whoa. But I'm like, that is actually like, look at her taking control. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wanna be more in control of stuff, and, like, that just was very empowering for me, even though I'm not gonna go out and have myself a reverse harem of people or a harem of anything. It was just kinda really neat to be able to live vicariously through her, but then also see how the interactions with all 3 of those men were totally different in what they gave her, and I think that's something I really like when you have whatever the spice level is, that I want the characters to contribute to each other, to have something. So, like, one character, in that book, like, is kind of, like, helping her feel stronger and more in herself. Another one's making her feel seen. So, like, they're all doing something, versus just being there as eye candy or to tickle her in a way she wants, right? Like, they're actually serving a deeper emotional purpose, and she is doing the exact same thing for them. It's that
Yeah.
reciprocal thing of we are making each other stronger and better, and our love is growing as a result.
That's the other aspect
Yeah.
too, like that reciprocal nature I feel like is very healing, particularly for a lot of women, because as we know, there's far too often the relationships that we have are not reciprocal. That's very imbalanced
Mhm.
on average, which is why there's so many of us millennials just opting for the single life. So, and the empowerment aspect, you know, the sexual empowerment is a huge aspect of why people read spicy stories, because you're able to feel that empowerment, see that new dynamic for yourself and feel like, "Oh my god, like this option might actually be available for me." Right? And so I know when I first read my first sapphic romance, that was probably in the probably steamy category, which I feel like is pretty common for just romance in
Yeah.
general, like
Yeah, I feel
that
like that one's a pretty common, especially now. I feel like the steamy is
pretty
I feel like
standard.
it's what we're getting a lot of stuff on, and
Yeah.
then then I feel like there's some of the more classical side is the sensual. And something I
Mhm.
found interesting, and then I'll let you get back to your thing, is that when I have been like researching like romantasy, the subgenres of romantasy and things, that there, because we have so much steam right now, there are a lot of people who don't like the steamy. And they're like, I was so thrilled when I found a like romantasy or romantic fantasy or whatever that was very light. It was in that sweet or sensual
Mhm.
category. They're like, I want more of that one or two chili pepper kind of thing because that's what I'm more comfortable with. And so I thought that was an interesting that we're seeing people who want that there. If that's what you like to write, like that's what I like to write, there is a huge market for that, which is being underserved right now because we have so much
Well,
of the
and you're
steamy
seeing that
now.
in TV shows and movies, like,
Mhm,
Gen Z is less likely to watch a show if it is graphic, like if it's a very steamy show or whatnot, whereas millennials grew up with these very steamy shows. Like Sex in the City was everything when I was young, right? And it was just like, oh my God, this is the thing. And it like continued to expand and get more and more over the years. And now you have situations like The Witcher, where Henry Cavill actually left because they refused to back off of the steaminess of it. And he felt like it was taking away from the story
mhm.
and stuff. That's one of the reasons why I guess it actually, that might be more of a theory, like a fan theory or whatever. I don't know. That's what I heard.
That's right. That's
I'm
our
passing
conspiracy
rumors.
theory.
Maybe I'm passing rumors around. I don't know. But yeah, and like so I think and that's why it's important to write what you feel called to write and not writing to market because the market is
Mhm,
always changing. It is very hard to write to the trends because the trends by the time your book is published could very well be different. You have to write actually Dickinson. The show Dickinson had an episode about that where this girl, she's like, oh, what if there's a story about this? Oh, what about a story about this? Nah, that would never sell. Nah, and she's describing Little Women and Moby Dick and these very, very famous stories and stuff. And then, like, she's passing it by because she's like, no, that won't sell. And she's trying to write to market instead of writing what she feels called to write. She's getting these amazing story downloads and she's like, nah. So, especially when it comes to spice level, right now it's like, oh, romantasy, steamy scenes, like we want it spicy is like maybe the hot thing and stuff. But I really think that we're gonna start seeing things like diversify a bit. I think that this
mhm.
was a wonderful door. The romantasy doorway for a lot of people. This brought a lot of people back to books. This played a very, very important role in the world of books and stories and stuff. We need more people to be reading books and to be writing books. But I think it's gonna change and evolve and like, okay, now we're moving through this and people are looking at exploring more types of stories and broadening things. And that's why as writers, I think we need to really focus on what feels right for our story, not what feels right for the market.
Absolutely.
I've lost the plot on the sapphic nose, so I don't know. I was talking about some gay
I'm
stuff, but
sorry, I
now no,
sidetracked
no,
you.
it's fine. I interrupt you like 5 times an episode. It's fine. I just don't remember what I was saying. It had something to do with lesbians. That's all I got.
All right. Well, you think on that for a second, and I want to touch on something that I think is a little interesting and might be why some readers are maybe a little bit confused when they're getting a book if it's the steam level they want or not. So, if we think back to the olden days of romance novels, you could look at the cover and you knew from the cover if like there
Well,
was the pirate with like the woman and it was like, "Ooh, like, oh, yeah, that's not the book I read when I'm staying
Fabio
at
was
grandma's
on the
house."
cover.
Right? Like, you knew what you were getting into, where now we've seen a huge change in the cover art for romance novels in
They're all
general.
like little cartoon people.
Yeah, or even just looking at, like, romantasy books as well. So, like I just picked this one up at Walmart. the Wolf
Mhm.
King, and I loved it because my character in mine is a shifter, and he has this big wolf medallion, so I was like, "Well, hell yeah, I gotta look at that." But when I look at this, if I just look at this cover, like, I know obviously it's gonna be a fantasy book, but I don't know from this cover if this
Mhm.
is steamy. How steamy is
Another
this?
great
Where on the
example of
spectrum
that
am
is the
I?
Zodiac Academy books. They're
Yeah.
just a zodiac wheel, and it just says Zodiac Academy, and they're kinda like different colors and stuff like that. But those apparently I have not read those because it's a YA, and I just generally don't like them.
Yep, yep,
But
so
my
we
mom
gotta
is
do
reading
something, let
them,
people know.
and she's like, "They are spicy." She's like, "I'm intrigued in the story. I'm hooked in the story, but god dang, they're spicy."
Yes, and that is not the one that I read you the back cover of, so I do wanna touch on
Oh,
that.
okay.
That this
I'm
is
like,
not the
"Did
one.
you get the
This is
really
not the
spicy
one.
one?
I did
Did you
not get
get"
that one, but I could tell from reading just, like, the back of the dust jacket, I could tell that this was gonna
Mhm.
be a little steamy, and then from the inside of the cover, I could tell it's gonna have steam, but I'm like, "That's okay because the storyline, I really like it." But before, we used to be able to tell these things by looking at covers that would give us our first clue, and now we don't have that anymore. We just don't, and who knows if we'll
Mhm.
ever get back to that because cover trends change as well.
Yeah.
So then you have to really look at the description to
Which is why
see
these little apps are so
it's why these
handy.
apps are good. So I was at Walmart and I pulled this book off the shelf and the cover was gorgeous. I don't even remember what the book's name was because I just took a picture of the back so I could read it to you. But I can't tell by the cover what this book is going to
Mhm.
be, but I could tell by the description. So the description on the back of the book was literally one sentence, and it says, "His entire body has clenched tighter than a bow, and instinctively, I know one stroke of my finger will loose something between us." So, like, I know right away looking at that, holy shit, that's not my kind of book. And I know absolutely then nothing about this book. I'm like, would it be my kind of book? And I could overlook that if it was like about things I like, but I have zero clue. No idea. But you can tell the audience that they're marketing to, they're like, oh, if it's that, I'm gonna love it. So I think we need to pay attention as authors in our descriptions on our sales pages for our books, but also the copy that we're putting on the back of our books to give the readers enough information to know about the world we're writing in, but also the expectation of how spicy or non-spicy that may be. And that may be something you do a little bit more on your description page where you can put something longer and make some little notes. But I think also keep that in mind if your book is going out onto a bookstore on shelves. The way you're wording the description of your story, you can already inform the reader this is going to have a light touch of romance or this is going to be down and dirty and like heck
Mhm.
yeah, you like it, you're going to like it. You know if you're the ones
Yeah.
who like it.
Yeah, and on the note of, like, as a writer who's writing romantic stories, because I think we're seeing romance in more categories. Because I know we have, like, the whole list of categories of,
Oh,
like,
there's so
romance
many.
and fantasy. It's I can't get them straight. I'm just like, "You know what?
Yeah.
They love each other.
Right, we
That's
have
what you get."
romantic fantasy and fantasy romance, and then we have more, and I'm like, "Wait, what?"
There's too much. It's
There's too much.
overthinky, and I don't do the I'm the person who people come to get out of overthinking. I'm not the one who tells you all about the overthinking. So that is not my zone of genius. That is not my realm. But, like, I think we're seeing more romance in stories, and we talked to our lovely romance author who came on in season 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Season 1.
season 1
Yeah.
about this, but I think we're seeing a lot more of it because, like, well, first, love is what drives us, right? Love and connection, belonging, like, those are themes that are built into our humanness, you know? And so it makes sense that we see it. And even in things that we don't, like, categorize as romantic. I love a good Lord of the Rings example. I'm wearing my Aragorn shirt today.
Woo!
You know, we don't see it as a romance, but love is very much a theme. The love in the brotherhood between Frodo and Sam.
I know, melt me. Oh.
Yeah, although there are some there's some speculation about Sam maybe being a little bit part of the alphabet mafia, but that love of friendship, that love of people, right? Where Aragorn has to choose to serve the people that he cares about by becoming the king, like taking on that mantle. There's love is still very much a theme in Lord of the Rings. Love lifts us up where we belong. Sorry, Moulin Rouge is now coming to my head because I said love too many times. But it's very, very important to our human experience. It is a fundamental piece of our human experience. So it weaving into more types of stories makes more sense. And I think makes the stories better and more relatable. It makes you care about the characters more because there's that aspect to it, and it deepens the story. And so it makes sense that it's starting to weave into things more. However, it is, as a writer, writing spicy scenes is a journey. I'm finishing up my cozy fantasy right now. Cozy fantasy right now. And there is a romance subplot in it, of course. And I just got to their little romantic scene, and it's just like, oh, this is great. This is easy. This is fine. This is no problem. And then I'm in my Loki book and I'm editing my Loki novel. And this book wants to be a lot spicier. Is so much, in fact, that it's like, no, we want a gay scene, a sapphic scene, and a straight scene in this book because Loki's a shapeshifter and therefore he is multiple genders and with multiple genders. So I'm like, okay. And I'm writing this scene with him and him as a man and with another man. And the guy's like, get on your knees. And I'm like, I don't know. And like our romance author said, you just turn your head and you scream and you're like, ah! And that's what it feels like. And it's so weird and uncomfortable. It's such an experience to write.
I just can't picture you doing that. Oh my God.
I would love to have other
right
authors tell me about their experience of writing spicy scenes. Because I have a friend who's writing a very spicy romantasy right now, and she's like, oh no, I love it, it's fine. I was like, oh, we get that's no problem. And I had her read this scene where I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm getting so spicy right now. And she read it, she's like, I mean, kind of a little. I'm like, what? I felt like it was so spicy. And she's like, you didn't even say cock or anything in it. I'm like, I'm not saying that.
And that brings up a really interesting thing too, because the same thing happened with our romance author from season 1. We'll link to her episode.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the same thing. She goes, I didn't think that it was really much of anything until she got feedback from her beta readers, and they were like, whoa, this scene where he went down on her. And she's like, yeah. And they're like, holy shit. And so she's like, yeah, it was much spicier than I thought. And we each in our minds, right, have a different degree of what spicy means to us. And so that's why having those beta readers or those writer friends take a look at it. Because then they can give you that their feedback and say, yeah, definitely, this one I think you would really want to market this, as more of a sensual category, or yeah, you were right, you're in the more steamy space, and that can give you a better idea because we all have different preferences, we all look at it different, and whatever you want to write is beautiful and fabulous, and that's what you should write. But having that feedback on what multiple people think of that steam level is will help you market your book so much better, so that you're getting it to the readers you want to get it and not having readers be disappointed because they thought it was going to be more steamy than it was, or be like, oh man, ew, this was too much for me, because it's not too much for the next person that's reading your book. It's just too much for that person.
Yeah. Well, and what do you do when it's too much for you, but the book's like, no, we need it spicier?
Right?
I don't know, because that's where I'm at, where I'm just like, my God, and I have to add this straight sex scene between Loki and Sigyn, the main female character in the book, and I'm like, I don't know how to write a good straight spicy scene, because let's be honest, I haven't had a lot of good straight sex in my life.
Oh my goodness. You need to have a conversation with Loki, because you also haven't had gay sex with a man. So, but he's like, let's do this.
Yeah, but for some reason that one makes sense to me. I'm like, yeah, of course. That's totally, that's cool. That's fine. Whatever. And I'm like, this is really spicy, but okay. And then I get to the straight one. I'm like, not like I haven't done this 100 times. I made a human, but
You
I
got
don't
the
know.
mental
It's a
blocks up,
journey.
like, "No."
It's a journey. I'm gonna have to ask some straight people some questions, which should not even be a problem for me, to be honest. Like, if you knew my life, it should not be a problem for me, but it is such a problem for me. So, other authors, what are your experiences in writing spicy scenes? Do you like writing spicy scenes? Do you like reading spicy scenes? And also, how do you feel when you're writing spicy scenes? Do you just like, no, this is totally fine, or are you like me and screaming internally as as it's happening?
Yes, we want to know. Share with us, and we can form our writers steamy support group and send each other messages of like, "Hey, what do you think about this scene?" Like, I need some input because that will be some interesting, not safe for work conversations, or as I have learned, not safe to have when you're exiting work with your windows down conversations.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you turn the volume down in your car for a
Yes,
few
or
of
I'm
these
just
things.
talking and not even thinking about it. Like the other day, we were talking about
Yeah.
fairy like cannibalism, and I'm just like talking about, well, yeah, the cannibalism, blah 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 blah, and my coworkers are like, oh, like this new girl's crazy. Like I started there a few weeks ago, and they're probably like, hot damn, like nobody go in Rachel's office alone. Like she's weird.
Yeah, yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
love it.
It's a crazy life being a writer, where you just like you end up on some lists,
Yeah.
maybe
Oh,
like
yeah. Definitely on some lists at this point. So come join us and be on some lists with us and
yeah.
share your comments below, or you can email us at storystruckpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah,
We'll see
and
you next week.
let us know what you thought, and if there's any specific topic that you want to hear about, please send us in your requests.
Yes, because we love going off on tangents.
We do. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, comment, do all the things because your support means everything for our little podcast. If you have an episode suggestion, please email us at storystruckpodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you'd like to hear next. You can also follow us at the links below.